It's a really good story we wanted to bring you as we close out the week here on America Talks Live. It's about a man named David Clark. Now, David told us he was very overweight and was an alcoholic. Now, he's a best-selling author and an endurance athlete. What a transformation. Now, amazingly, he went from the rock bottom of bankruptcy, losing a successful business and multiple health scares, to become one of the fittest and happiest athletes on the planet. David is also the author of the new book, Broken Open, Mountains, Demons, Treadmills, and a Search for Nirvana. David, good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Man, you look like a completely different person than in those images we showed in the when we left the last segment and teased it. Let me ask you the obvious question. What was the catalyst? What was the spark that made you go from someone with bad life habits that could have killed you at a young age, let's be candid about it, to somebody who's now an extreme athlete, an endurance athlete? I mean, that is just a radical transformation.
It is a radical transformation. And you know, the Hollywood narrative is that, you know, I had all of these negative consequences, and then one day I woke up in jail or I got threatened and there was a big intervention and I changed. But the reality was my life was so bad that every day for 10 years, it could have been one of those kind of rock bottom moments. And it was in August 5th of 2005 that I woke up one morning and I realized that I was going to die and my kids were going to have to figure out why that happened, or I could take this kind of hole I dug myself into and turn it around and show them what a comeback looks like. And show them there's no such thing as too far gone.
You consider yourself, you describe yourself, and I really like this description, a Buddhist, an extreme athlete, and a patriotic guy. How do those things tie in together? Explain that to us.
You know, on the surface, it seems like they're contradictory, right? You go into these extreme races, you know, running 100 miles, and obviously it takes a lot of determination to be an endurance athlete. And the picture of the Buddhist is the kind of peaceful surrender, you know, no desire. But the reality is even the Buddha had to be wildly motivated to achieve enlightenment. And I think that when we apply ourselves in the right way, that action of being mindful and present in our life can build us up instead of destroy us. You know, I had made getting, you know, drunk and using fast food the top of my list. And I always got it done because of that. But when I made happiness the top of my list, I was able to accomplish that as well.
So let me ask you this, because there are some people, psychologists, psychiatrists will say, just have addictive personalities. So do you think that a person who has an addictive personality with bad habits can channel that addiction into a positive set of let's call addictions, not to be redundant, instead of fast food and alcohol, running, cycling, and lifting weights? I mean, is that something that you did? Or is that something that other people can try to do, change the way they think and rechannel?
I do think that is possible. And, you know, that was really the purpose of writing Broken Open, was about, the first book I wrote was about how do you go from 320 pounds to an athlete? And then the new book is about, has that made my life any better? Did I create another prison for myself in running and exercise and fitness? Or did I find a new way to be happy? And just like anything, those things don't happen overnight, right? It's the push and pull and the act of seeking balance that brings about balance. Because I think we can have it all. I do think that the picture of the person who's so insanely driven that they cost themselves their whole life, their family, their happiness, I don't think that's accurate. I think we can have it all, but we'll never get it all by accident. It has to be a part of our practice. We have to make bringing happiness along for the ride part of the journey.
You know, I see so many stories about guys who are young. I worked in law enforcement, and I hear these stories about, you know, police officers and other types of first responders, less firefighters because they're required to be a bit more fit for their job, who die very young of heart attack, of stroke, because they're sitting in these patrol cars for these long hours. They've got bad diets, right? It's fast food if you're working in a rough area and you're sitting there drinking that coffee all day. But here's the thing. Many of these people go to the doctor. They're in their early 40s, late 30s. They go to the doctor. They're told they've got arterial blockages, they're high cholesterol. They don't change their habits. Why do you think that is? Why do people, you think, get complacent, don't change their habits? And I'm asking you, a guy that changed yours dramatically.
Yeah, I think because we engage in this thing that's meant to be an exercise of gratitude, right? Like we say, it could always be worse, or at least I'm not this bad. I've got a job. I'm active. I'm a police
Right.
officer. Whatever that motivation or mechanism we use to justify that. And what it does instead of bring about gratitude is it gives us permission to stay in the painful place we're living in. And sometimes we need to look around and collect that pain and say, hey, my life is bad. Not trying to make it better, but say this is bad enough. And if I don't change, it's going to bring about X consequences. But we're afraid to do that. But that's where all the power of change is in touching how bad it is.
So give me some practical advice you put in the book. You've got somebody watching the show today. They're in their late 30s to mid 50s. They just got a moderately bad bill of health from their doctor. But the good news is if you change your diet and you exercise, you're going to be in great shape. What gets them off the couch? What's something practical in your book or a piece of advice you would give them to get them off the couch, into the gym, into the grocery store, buying more healthy food?
Absolutely. I love that question. And it's two things. Number one, we'll never know how strong we are until being our strongest is required. So a lot of times we try small incremental change, but we never activate the true power that we have inside to commit to something. So make your goal big, make it passionate, make it huge, make it emotional. But then there's the kicker. Then you got to stay present in the moment. So don't try to own that big, huge goal all at one time. Just get to say that gym that one day that. And my first workout was 15 seconds long. That's all I could do. And that became 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, and eventually 100-mile foot races.
Yeah,
so
now I've got a friend who's an endurance athlete. So I want the viewers to understand if they don't know what that is. This friend of mine, and I'm assuming this is what you do, and I think personally he's crazy. He runs these 70, 80-mile races in Death Valley in the summer. I mean, some of the things you guys do are really, really, to many of us, are like, wow, that's out there. What's the longest race you've done?
So I have done the race you're talking about is the Badwater 135. It's actually a 135-mile race across Death Valley. I've done that 3 times. The longest I've ever run one time is I did 48 hours on a treadmill nonstop to celebrate my 10th year of sobriety.
That's absolutely incredible. Look, I like to get into the gym. I like to run, but I am definitely not one of you guys, and I have nothing but envy for what you're able to do. David Clark, thanks very much. Really, really suggest people grab the book. Great story. Great way to end the week, David. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back.